My landscaping career started in the late 1990s, long before I earned a PhD in horticulture. And early on in my career, I was operating under some knowledge that was dead wrong. And it's the exact same information that I see lots of homeowners operating under 30 years later. It's wasting your time, it's wasting your money, and you're having the same issues year after year. So today, I'm giving you 7 lessons that completely changed how I design and care for landscapes. Let's get into it. Lesson number 1, if the soil is dead, fertilizer is just a Band-Aid. For the first few years that I was in the landscaping industry, I thought fertilizer was the answer to everything. Yellow plant, feed it. A thin lawn, throw down some nitrogen. That's what I was taught, and that's what the bags at the garden center tell you. N, P, and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, that'll fix it. You see, here's what I didn't understand at 19 years old that later on in my education I fully understood. It's that healthy soil isn't just dirt. Healthy soil is alive. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil has more organisms in it than there are people on the entire face of the earth. Fungi, bacteria, earthworms. Those organisms are what's actually feeding the plant. When the biology of your soil is dead from compaction, from over-tillage, from years of synthetic salt buildup from excessive fertilizer, these are the conditions that make poor soil. If you don't have organic matter and microorganisms, you don't have nutrient cycling through your soil. So here's a pro tip for you. Before you buy another bag of fertilizer this fall, add some compost, add some mulch to your landscape beds. 1 inch of compost or mulch added to your beds will decompose slowly, providing nutrients to your plants. Now I need to be honest with you about this one. The green up will be much slower than adding synthetic fertilizers that contain nitrogen. You're not going to see a quick turnaround in 3 days. But here's what I've seen after being in the landscape industry for 25 years. The yards that add a layer of mulch or compost to their flower beds are the ones that are going to look the best 10 years from now. Lesson number 2, and this is one that costs homeowners way more money than any plant decision they have ever made. It is that drainage should be the foundation of any landscape design and not an afterthought. Very early on in my career, before I had any formal training, I used to focus on what's the best plant. But slowly and surely I learned my first priority should be, where does the water go? And the reason for this is simple, and I've seen this play out time and time again. Water underneath foundations and crawl spaces, puddles in the front yard, plants mysteriously dying when in the spring they look fantastic. I need to be precise here because this is vitally important. Most flower beds need a minimal of 2% slope. That's 2 inches of drop over 8 foot of run. Especially those flower beds that are up against a house. Always make sure the elevation profiles of foundation plantings go away from the house at a minimal of 2%. If a 2-inch slope cannot be achieved in the landscape, oftentimes we need to install a French drain. French drains need to be 18 to 24 inches deep in order to remove the correct amount of water. If you can't fix the slope, you don't have drainage. And when you don't have drainage, what you do have is a bathtub. And no amount of fertilizer in the world is going to fix a bathtub. Lesson number 3, chances are you're watering entirely wrong. Frequent light watering, 10 minutes every morning, that keeps roots at the top 2 inches of soil. And guess what happens when August hits and it's 95 degrees outside? Those shallow root systems cook. Deep and infrequent waterings is what encourages a drought-resistant landscape. 1 inch of water once a week for established shrubs and trees. Ideally, water slowly so that it soaks in 6 to 8 inches deep. When possible, use drip irrigation. It is by far the most efficient way to water trees and shrubs. However, with turf like you see here, it's not realistic to use drip. Also, there's been several advances over the past 2 or 3 decades with irrigation technology. You can now operate your irrigation systems from your phone. Also, there's rainfall sensors that'll shut off the irrigation system if you have rain in your area. All of these tools can be used together to save on your water bill and also prevent you from overwatering. Lesson number 4 is going to ruffle some feathers. I'm going to get some hate in the comments down below, so I want to handle this carefully. Now, I love native plants and I use them constantly. But there's something that I want you to understand, that the term native is not a magical word that automatically means they're going to be successful in your landscape. And here's what drives me absolutely crazy. I have people ask me, Dr. Warren, all I want in my landscape is all native plants, so I never have to take care of them. But if you take a native plant that wants moist woodland edge and stick it in compacted clay next to a south-facing brick wall in Zone 8A, it's going to struggle. And that's not because the plant is bad, it's because it's in the wrong spot. The thought process of the right plant in the right place beats the thought process of all natives at all cost every single time. I would rather you plant an adapted plant like Camellia japonica or tea olive that's not native here, that will thrive for 20 years than a native that dies in 2 years that you have to replace. So my rule of thumb after 25 years in the green industry is this: use natives to where they're adapted in that microclimate. And if not using natives, use a plant that is adapted to that climate. In the long run, you're going to come out ahead every single time. If you're finding this information helpful, hit the like button below. Also, if you haven't subscribed or become a member yet, please consider doing so. Members receive exclusive perks through the channel. Now let's get into lesson 5, because lesson 5 is going to save you the most money. Lesson number 5 is the most expensive mistake I see homeowners constantly make. Not designing for 10 years from now, and instead designing for day number 1. When I was 18 or 19 years old, working on my first landscape jobs, I designed for day 1. I wanted instant impact. That 6-foot tall Nellie R. Stevens holly at $250 a pop, planted 5 feet apart from each other. It looked absolutely amazing on install day. And what I understand at this point in my career is that exact same plant is going to look terrible 5 years from now. They're choking each other out, they're fighting for light, and you're paying somebody to prune them back severely multiple times a year. And here's why. Nellie R. Stevens wants to be 12 to 15 feet wide at maturity. If you plant them 5 feet apart, you bought 2 plants where 1 would do, and you're pruning forever. Unless you have a very specific reason to need immediate visual impact, for example, selling the house next month, just save your money. Buy the 3-foot tall plant at $85, plant it 8 to 10 feet apart, and let it reach its natural form. Underplant with something that fills in while the Nellie R. Stevens grows. And that's something I want you to understand as a homeowner. On day 1, good landscape designs usually look sparse. The goal is to have a long-term, healthy landscape and not one for instant, immediate impact. Lesson number 6 may get some angry comments down below, but it needs to be said. Stop topping your trees, especially crepe myrtle. Topping out trees compromises the limb integrity of the plant. Also, it promotes water spouts growing in the tree. Water sprouts grow very fast from the tops of the trees. They're not as strong as regular limbs, and they'll be very susceptible to wind, ice, and snow. Also, early on in my landscape career, I thought that you had to prune crepe myrtles in order to make them bloom. That is completely and entirely false. And lesson number 7, the final one, and perhaps the most important. No landscape is ever done. I see homeowners get frustrated and they ask me, Tom, why do I still have to change things? But here's what I've learned that I didn't know almost 30 years ago. A landscape is a living thing. It should evolve with time. The best landscapes that I've ever designed are ones that we've edited every 3 to 5 years. We removed plants that outgrew their space, and we replaced underperformers. A well-designed landscape is one that's built to evolve gracefully as the landscape matures. A good landscape design reduces maintenance, but it never completely eliminates it. And to me, that's the actual beauty of it all. So there you have it, 7 lessons that I've learned after 25 years in the green industry and earning a PhD in field that completely change how I design landscapes. I've planted thousands of plants, installed hundreds of landscapes, and I can tell you this, you get these 7 things right, and further down the road, your life will be much, much easier. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor, and until next time, happy gardening.